Hi, it's Summary Movie. Dying, this billionaire decides to transfer his conscience to a young body. But something goes wrong. Today, I'm going to present an action, mystery, and science fiction film from 2015 to you. Title Selfless. Be careful, spoiler, good video to all. The Damien Hola, a prosperous and billionaire businessman, looked through the large windows of her apartment in New York. Behind him, a nurse is preparing to leave and picks up her tools. The billionaire has terminal cancer and barely 6 months left. Later, during a lunch with his best friend Martin, he discusses his illness and the fact that he still hasn't talked to his daughter Claire. Damien does not have a good relationship with Claire because he was a work executioner, while she grew up and did not spend enough time with her. Martin thinks that if Claire is aware of the disease, she will forgive him and that he would quickly reconcile. Before Damien and Martin separate, the billionaire asks his friend if he has heard of transfer, and Martin responds negatively. In her limousine, Damien tries to call Claire, but she does not answer. He then takes out the business card of a company called Biogenetic Phoenix and recalls the conversation he had with the owner of the company, Dr. Holbright. The doctor's primary mission is to offer the great spirit of humanity, a way to prolong their lives and achieve their full potential. He created a device capable of transporting consciousness from one body to another, a process known as transfer. The company provides new bodies genetically designed to perfection to all those who are ready to pay a lot of money to obtain them. Damien remembers that he asked the doctor why their service was still illegal. But Holbright said he was asking bad questions. The good question would be, do you feel immortal? After crossing his memories and wondering if he had to accept the Albright offer, Damien goes to Claire, who directs a non-profit organization. Eager to arrange things before dying, he gives money to his daughter but does not talk to him about his illness. She refuses to take the money because she thinks he manipulates her, expecting his checkbook to solve all the problems. Damien later seated in his office, dissue of the way things happened with Claire. Desperate to have another chance in life, he continues to find out about the subiogenic ephenic transfer. He discovers that the procedure was invented by Dr. Jensen, and watch a video of him explaining the philosophy he has in weather. Jensen wanted to release the spirit of the body and allow people to live even after the death of their body. But while Damien is doing research on the transfer, he begins to cough blood and vanishes. The disease begins to consume it, and when it wakes up with respiratory tubes attached to its nose, he decides to call Albright and plan the procedure. Albright explains that after the exchange, he will no longer be able to contact anyone and that his old life will no longer exist. He also asked her to come to New Orleans and publicly simulate his fed-up. The next day, Damien takes the plane and called Martin to ask him if they can have lunch in New Orleans. Before meeting him, he went to the cemetery of New Orleans and buried a mysterious box near a grave. During lunch with Martin, Damien simulates an epilepsy crisis and collapsed on the ground. Martin is afraid and calls 911. But instead of going to the hospital, the ambulance vehicle takes the billionaire to Biogenic Phoenix. They quickly start the procedure, bite Damien with a needle and install it in the device, being completely aware. Lights and strong sounds make him even more uncomfortable, but his perception is quickly transferred to the young man's new body. When Damien turns to the head, he sees his old unconscious and dead body. Shocked and disgusted, it vomits. Albright tells him that it will take him a few days to adapt while Damien begins to have hallucinations. The objects begin to transform and he sees the image of a song with horses. The doctor then says with sarcasm that death has side effects. Damien must now stay in the hospital and undergo training and physical therapy to get used to his new body. As he cannot go back to his new life, Damien must also learn a false biography and use a new name. Edward Kidner. After a brief phase of confusion and despair, he begins to love his new, beautiful face, but hallucinations and headaches do not disappear. Albright explains to him that his mind is not yet used to the new neuronal structure and gives it pills to facilitate the transition. If Damien does not take them, he may die or have serious migraines and hallucinations. He must also stay in New Orleans to regularly meet Albright. And get your weekly pills. Once the training is completed, Damien is deposited in a large and beautiful house in New Orleans who is now his. Damien, alias Edward, adapts quickly and begins to play basketball in the neighborhood. He meets Anton there, who lives right next to his home, and offers to go out with him. The same evening, he goes to a club and all women look at Damien, who is now a handsome young man. He still is not used to answering questions about his life, his work, and his age. So much so that people find him a little weird. Despite this, Damien settles in a new routine much earlier than expected. He starts hanging around with his friends, playing basketball, sleeping with beautiful women, taking pills, going out in a club, and enjoying life. Quite simply, after a while, this new routine no longer satisfies it, especially since he can no longer see his daughter. Distracted by his sadness, he forgets one day to take his pill. Shortly after, started to have hallucinations. He sees army flashbacks as well as images of a small town with a pumpkin tower. In his hallucinations, he also sees a sick mother and little daughter living in the countryside. As the hallucination is too strong, Damien thinks it is a memory. Later, he describes what he saw in Dr. Holbright, who insists that it is a mixture of his old memories and his current emotions. To draw his attention to something else, the doctor offers him tickets for Hawaii and doubles his drugs. He also tells her that he saw a sick little girl because Claire misses him, and that the Latina woman of her hallucination is probably a daughter of an evening of her youth. However, Damien did not tell Holbright that the woman was Latin, so he immediately begins to suspect the doctor. He knows that something is wrong and then tries to find the Tower of the Pumpkin online. It turns out that there is an identical tower in a small town in San Luis. Looking for answers, he decides to trap in Holbright and go to San Luis instead of Hawaii. Before leaving, he goes to the cemetery and unearths the box he buried. There are money, documents, and credit cards inside. So he takes a little and heads for the airport. One of the men of Holbright follows him, but Damien escapes him quickly and takes a flight for the small town. A few hours later, he arrived just in front of the pumpkin tower he had seen before. Next to the tower, he notices a house and knocks on the door. But there is no one. Press hears that it is not normal. Damien decides to enter the property and discovers medical invoices and parts of a respiratory system inside. More importantly, he sees a photo of Madeline and Anna, the mother and daughter of her hallucination. He also sees his new body in one of the photos. It turns out that the body was not genetically modified, but that it was a real person with a life. While he has to face this uncomfortable truth, Madeline returns home and points to a weapon on him from behind. He tells her to calm down and turns slowly towards her as she falls to the ground, plooting in disbelief because she thought her husband was fed up. As he tries to explain himself, the men of Albright enter the house. To his, Madeline has tried to remove Damien. His friend Anton also comes because he was part of the biogenetic phoenix. She spied on it all this time. Anton explains that Mark, Madeline's husband, agreed to give his body against money that would cover the treatment of his daughter. Damien is shocked and in-mouth Anton, explaining that Albright is a murderer. The spy then entrusted him with a cold metaphor, telling him that it is normal to be upset because he bought a new car, and that he has just discovered that she had a few kilometers at the Canter. Also, even if it is angry, there is no point in returning home since they will murder Madeline and burn his property. Fortunately, the billionaire has a great moral sense and decides to trap Albright men and save Madeline. He pretends to take his pills, gets back to the toilet, and attacks one of the men there. With the help of Mark's military instinct, he kills a few men from Albright and will wake up Madeline, but loses his pills during a fight. Anton and the others try to burn the house, but Madeline and Damien slip underneath and start to shoot them in their legs. Shortly after, Damien kills everyone and runs to the car with Mark's wife. Damien lies and pretends to be her husband, saying that he agreed to do a dirty job to pay Anna's medicines. All from the way, recover Anna, who is at school. Anna also thinks that Damien is her father. So she runs towards him and hugs him in his arms, shouting that she knew he was not fed up. Later, the three of them settle in a motel where Damien uses a computer to find out more about biogenic Phoenix. He discovers that Albright was a student of Jensen and also found the address of Phyllis, the wife of Dr. Jensen. As he has no more pills, he catches a migraine and begins to hallucinate again. Madeline worries, but Damien knows what to do. He decides to visit Phyllis and learn more about the business. The next morning, they take the car and go to the retirement home where Jensen's wife resides. He pretends to be a student who is doing research on Jensen's work and asks Phyllis to give him the old paper and documents of the doctor. The old woman, suffering from Alzheimer's disease, believes Damien and begins to tell her of all kinds of information. He asks Phyllis to call Albright and invite him to come. When the doctor arrives, Damien points to a weapon on him, demanding more pills. But Albright reveals a bitter truth to him. The more pills he takes, the more Mark disappears at the same time as his fighter talents and his military training. Without the pills, Damien's mind will fall into oblivion and Mark will regain control of his body. But as he starts walking in the corridor, Albright's men attack them and disarming them. As they take Damien to a black vehicle, Madeline arrives and strikes full of Albright men. It turns out that it was Anton in a new body. This is not his first transfer, and that is why he can quickly adapt to new vessels. Damien rejects the other keeps, but before the young couple fled. Anton warns Madeline that Damien hides something and tells her to ask her for their daughter's birthday. When Damien and Madeline get into their car, the worried mother insists that they stop as soon as the way is free. She wants to make things clear, especially after interaction with Anton. She questions Damien on Anna's birthday and other details of their common life. When he cannot give any answer, he begins to explain the situation while Anna observes their argument from the car. Wondering if all is well, Madeline becomes very agitated and angry because Damien manipulated her, and because she will have to disappoint her daughter. She does not want to explain to Anna that the man who looks like her father is actually a stranger. But Albright's men also want to kill her, even if she is not Damien and does not trust him. She has to work with him to survive. The billionaire then thinks of a plan: ask Martin and place Anna and Madeline in a safe place. When they arrive at the manor of his friend, Damien convinces Martin of the truth by describing details that only two know. Martin then agreed to help them and reorganize their flight. Later, Damien tries to explain to the little Anna that she will never see her father again, but he begins to be friends with her, creating new memories, a magnificent father. He teaches her to swim and they have fun together while Madeline observes them from the window, happy. As he is in her husband's body, she feels attracted to Damien. So she listens to her heart and kisses her. Damien feels uncomfortable and begins to tell him about his previous life in order to divert his attention from Mark. He confides in his relationship with Claire and they have an honest and sincere conversation. But suddenly, Damien notes that all the mirrors in the house are covered. He knows that Martin's son died 2 years ago and quickly begins to suspect that something is wrong. He runs and tries to find Anna, who is in a large child's room playing with a little boy. Damien immediately understands that Martin also brought his child to biogenetic Phoenix. She gave him a new body. It turns out that Martin denounced them in Albright and that the killers await them outside to kill them. But Damien confronts his friend and tells him that the child's body was not created in the laboratory. He was a real person and someone else's child. Martin, shocked and disgusted, decides to help them. This time for good, he takes Madeline and Anna to a safe place. On foot through a forest, while Damien goes by Kara's step. Shortly after, he joined a chase with the men of Albright who tried to capture him and kill him. After shooting and rushing in it, they are all victims of a serious car accident. Damien comes out of the car and makes sure everyone died before going to the restaurant where he is supposed to find Madeline and Martin. However, Martin is the only one to arrive. He explains to Damien that Madeline and Anna have ahead of him in the forest. They asked for help from a mysterious car on the road. They didn't know it was Albright's men. So they were kidnapped, and Martin could not do anything because they were far away. Damien also learns that Martin has planted the biogenetic Phoenix business card to help him. More importantly, he discovered that Martin discovered the formula of Albright pills and that he can make them from scratch. But Damien begins to ask if he should continue to take pills, especially since this way he kills Mark. He postponed this decision one later, his priority being to save Madeline and Anna. The plan is to stop the pill for 12 hours, in the hope of using Mark's memories to find more information on the location of the laboratory. During his detoxification, he saw a Tuesday Fat warehouse near the Albright laboratory. So he decides to go to New Orleans to find the warehouse. The next day, he went to New Orleans and found the laboratory exactly next to a Gras Tuesday warehouse. He broke down and attacked some guards without anyone noticing. Suddenly, Albright appears behind a glass wall. He said sarcastically to Damien that Madeline was the perfect bodily correspondence for a new customer, and that Anna's organs will not be wasted. Damien gets angry and shoots the glass that separates them when suddenly, two Albright men appear and disarming. Blood Body will now serve again receptacle for Antoine's consciousness. Before entering the machine, Damien finds a bullet and swallows it without anyone noticing it. The next moment, Antoine wakes up in Mark's body. Albright begins to ask questions to determine if it is Antoine. After convincing him, he sent him on a mission to assassinate Madeline and Anna. But when Antoine enters the room where she is, he kills the guards and saves the mother and the daughter. It turns out that it was Damien in Mark's body from the start. The three fled and fight the men of Albright. Soon he finds himself in a room that separates them from Albright by a glass wall. Damien tells the doctor that he listened to the instructions carefully before the first intervention. He remembered that the transformation does not work if there is metal on or in the bodies. By swallowing a ball, he managed to stay in Mark's body. Albright does not think that Damien will kill him because he is the only one to hold the pill formula. But he does not know that Martin found the solution, so Damien burns the doctor with a torch. After escaping from the laboratory, Anna and Madeline go to a safe destination that Martin found for her. But Damien does not come. Instead, he's going to see Claire. He pretends to be his father's friend and begins to open. He told Claire that Damien regretted not having spent time with her when she was a child, and he was proud of her. Then he gives her a letter and leaves without forgetting to take a last look by the window. Then Damien wakes up in a hotel room. He is confused and finds a video of him on a computer. It turns out that Damien is no longer in Mark's body. The billionaire decided to stop the pill and let Mark take over, making him the life that had been removed from him. Mark is in shock, but he is extremely grateful. He then joined Madeline and Anna, who now live on a magnificent tropical island. I hope you enjoyed this summary. Tell us in the comments what you think of the film and subscribe to our channel to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching.